Hi, I'm Eric Schultz. I'm the owner-operator of Steadfast Farm here in Mesa, Arizona. We're a small bio-intensive farm growing mixed vegetables for our community, restaurants, and farmers markets. So a typical day here on the farm is we start out early in the morning with harvesting the vegetables. We do that a few times a week so that the vegetables are always getting to the end customer at the freshest possible, most nutritious, nutrient dense that they can be. So we start nice and early so that we can get those harvested into our walk-in refrigeration before the heat of the day comes on. After that, we're doing some washing of those vegetables, and then we'll do some seeding and planting in the field, preparing for the next succession of vegetables. We have the kind of unique privilege of having a restaurant right next to the farm, and so the chef owner, Adam Allison of the Handlebar Diner, we've been good friends for a number of years, and so when we saw the opportunity to do this project where we could have our businesses right next to each other and really bring that farm next to the table and provide produce for their menu is a pretty unique and awesome experience. Since we're a small-scale farm, we don't rely on the use of large equipment like tractors and that, and so we need to use more specialized equipment for our scale. So we use a lot of interesting kind of human-scale tools like a greens harvester that's powered by a cordless drill that helps us to harvest the salad greens quickly and efficiently. And then we've also done some kind of farm hacks where we've kind of modified different pieces of equipment like washing machines and different sinks and to be able to wash that produce efficiently and well. How I got into farming is actually an interesting story. None of my schooling or background had to do anything with farming. I actually started going to college for criminal justice. From there, while I was in college, took a job working in design and slowly transitioned to a landscape design role at a company doing high-end residential and commercial projects. Along the way, I worked on a project that integrated a farm in a community and became very kind of involved in that project and really kind of fell in love with farming in that process. And so decided to take a couple years off and work on this farming project and really fell in love with it and been doing it for about 8 years now. Being a small farm, we have a very kind of lean labor model, so we just have a small staff of just a few folks that help us in the day-to-day, one of which is Kyle, who you're going to hear from here in a minute.
Hi, my name is Kyle. I'm a farmer here at Steadfast Farm. On a day-to-day basis, I kind of work out in the field. I do a lot of seeding, planting, and harvesting. I also do a lot of post-harvest here at the farm as well. I came to farming actually through the restaurant industry. I was working, I got my first job in a kitchen when I was 14, just washing dishes. It was like $4.30 an hour or something like that. So, like, minimum wage was crazy back then, but got really interested in the kitchen and worked through the various positions within the kitchen. I was like doing flat top and grill and all that stuff, and really just found like a passion for food that I didn't know that I had. I loved working with my hands, and I loved creating like dishes and recipes. So that all kind of sparked my interest in food early on in high school, and then went on to college and started working in kitchens just to kind of like help pay for rent and stuff like that. So was working in kitchens throughout college. Still really interested in food and like how food gets to restaurants, and interested in origins, like how things are grown, but still more so on the just like the kitchen work side. And then actually I came to farming, but my last job, I've been working in management for maybe 3 to 4 years as a restaurant manager. And the restaurant that I was working at was all organic, locally sourced food. On a daily basis, I was interacting with distributors and suppliers and farmers too. Just farmers would come in and drop their produce off, and just getting to know them, starting to follow them on social media. I got to know Steadfast, and that's kind of how I came into contact with Steadfast Farm, and saw a post one day that they were hiring, and I'd kind of come to a stopping point in my career with management, just kind of getting a little burnt out, wanting to move on to something new, something more exciting. And farming was right there for me. And ever since then, I've just been like, it's been such a great process to learn, to get my hands dirty, get to know where the food comes from, and just seeing the world of food from a different side. Starting with a typical day at the farm, I do a lot of the greens harvest. So I have like a special tool that helps me cut the greens that we use in our salad mix. It's a really big time saver. So it turns maybe like a 2 to 3 hour job into just a 10-15 minute job. After I'm done harvesting the greens for the day, it goes into the walk-in cooler where it chills. And then after it's chilled for maybe 1 to 2 hours, I go into washing and packaging greens. Washing involves putting it in a big bin with water and pushing air into the tub so that it creates sort of like a circular bubbling motion, and that knocks all of any sort of dirt that might be on the greens down. And then we take the greens out, set them on a big rack, and it dries. And after it's done drying, it goes back into the walk-in where we package for our different wholesale orders or for farmers markets, things like that. One of my favorite things about working on the farm is going to the farmers market and selling produce. It's such a great opportunity to interface with the public, and it gives a lot of purpose to what I do here on the farm too. So when we go to farmers market, we spend the entire day before just planning, preparing, and making sure everything's harvested, processed, and then organized in a way that we can take it to the farmers market quickly the next day. But actually at market is when I can really start to talk to customers, talk to the people that love our food, and just interfacing with them on a daily basis. Getting to know their names is another really big aspect of that as well, and just getting to know who it is that's buying produce, and who it is that just loves farming as much as I do.
All right, we're going to transition into the live question and answer portion of the broadcast. My name is Brian Hoffner, and I'm here with Mr. Eric Schultz and Mr. Kyle Laws from Steadfast Farm. So thank you guys for being here. And we're going to be answering your questions that you've been sending into the chat box about small scale farming. So if you have anything that you want to ask them about their journey or what they do, or maybe about a community farm that you're doing at your school or in your community, use your chat box and send that in, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. So the first question that we have is, it was kind of, you guys talked a lot about in your story and about what you guys do at the farm, that you guys really focus on organic practices. Right. So what does that mean that you guys use organic practices when you're growing your produce and your stuff like that? And how is that beneficial to us?
Sure. We, in growing organically, we're not certified organic, but we use all organic growing practices. So we're not using pesticides, chemical fertilizers, that sort of thing. So we're basically using natural methods to care for the plants in the soil, and really our focus is having healthy soil. So we're all about making sure that we're feeding the soil so that it produces, as a byproduct, delicious vegetables.
Okay. Yeah. So are there advantages to me as, when I'm cooking with that or when I'm eating something like that I should be thinking about for why I should be picking this types of produce?
Sure. Oh, yeah, definitely. Organic produce, in my opinion, always tastes a lot better than conventionally raised produce. It looks a lot better, and generally it's just more flavorful and nutrient packed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So I have a question from a kindergarten class, and this is from Christy Davis's class, and they want to know how hard your workday is, and specifically, when does your workday start and when does it end?
Sure. Well, our workday changes, or when it starts changes throughout the season, and we usually try to start when the sun comes up so that we're taking advantage of the cool temperatures. So as it's starting to get warmer and warmer, we're starting earlier and earlier. So right now we don't start till about 7:30, but once we get into the heat of summer, we'll start at 5:30 every morning and try to get all that work done as fast as possible so we can get out of the field around lunchtime and staying cool. So, but yeah, it is hard work, but we try to use techniques that make the job easier for us, different tools, and also just we want to be really careful in how we harvest things and that, so that we're taking care of our bodies and that, because we only get one, and so we want to make sure we take care of it.
Nice.
Yeah, and just really focusing on posture too while we're harvesting too is really important on just conserving your energy and staying comfortable while you're harvesting as well.
Okay.
And especially when it gets hot, just making sure that you're drinking all sorts of water and staying hydrated. So.
Focusing on posture, that's a really good thought that I would have never considered in your line of work. And I know it's really physically taxing, but when you're saying focus on posture, like what are you thinking about when you're describing that?
Oh yeah, so for instance, like when we're harvesting salad greens, like a lot of bending at the waist and your legs are kind of straight, so it's like it can kind of like take a toll on certain parts of your body. So sometimes I'll kind of just like switch up my position, and maybe instead of crouching over and kneeling, I'll be like just stretching my legs out in a different way. I might like squat for a little while and harvest that way, just to kind of give my other muscles a break.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I have two questions that came in from Sue Leichner's class, and the first one kind of deals with the name. Where did the name for Steadfast Farm come from?
Sure.
And then the second question they had is, how old do you have to be to work at a farm?
Okay. The name Steadfast Farm, the word steadfast, persevering or unwavering, we always just felt we identified with that as a good descriptor of a farmer and what you need to be, because there's constantly challenges in that, and so being steadfast we thought was a good way to describe how we wanted to approach farming. So that would be the name. And what was the second one?
The second one was with the age. So how old do you have to be to start working?
Well, my kids started really young, but we usually like to have folks in the early or mid-teens where we could start kind of working part-time. Just like when you would get any new part-time job, but we do a lot of delivering in that too, and so I have to have driver's license in that. So all of our crews, early 20s.
Yeah.
Nice. So I have a question here from Michael in Christy Davis's class, who would like to know where do you purchase your seeds, and then also what's your favorite fruit or vegetable?
All right. We purchase our seeds from a number of different seed companies, but we have one in particular that we work a lot with, and the name is Johnny's Select Seeds, and they're on the East Coast, and we have a really good relationship with them, and they take really good care of us, and so primarily we get all of our seeds from them, but there's a lot of great companies out there. And tell me again the second question.
The second question is your favorite fruit or vegetable?
Yes. I have two favorite vegetables, and one would be lettuce or salad greens, and the other one would be carrots and that. And I love growing salad greens because, both of those vegetables most people like. Not all vegetables people like, but salad is usually a pretty safe one, and carrots in particular, even for younger folks that maybe don't care much for vegetables, when they try our carrots and they're super sweet, they become instantly fans, and so those are always big sellers at the farmers markets.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of potatoes.
Okay.
I love potatoes, and potatoes, broccoli, all the really good tasty stuff. I haven't really encountered a vegetable I don't like yet.
Okay. So is that from an eating standpoint or from a growing standpoint?
Definitely eating standpoint. There are some vegetables I don't really like to grow, but
Like what? Like what type of vegetables do you not like to grow?
well, for instance, like eggplant can be kind of challenging sometimes. Just like with the plants get really big, and it's kind of a maze to like navigate and find the eggplants in there. I don't know, it's all relatively like fun to grow, but there are just some that are a little bit more challenging, I would say, to harvest.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kate Anderson has a question about some of the small human scale equipment that you guys use for harvesting.
Sure.
So how did you guys come up with some of these ideas, or where did you guys get the ideas from that you kind of made at your farm to help with harvesting?
Right. Well, the small scale farming scene has really exploded in the last, let's say, 8 years. And when I started farming, there was very little of this type of equipment available. And so we were doing everything the hard way, because all the equipment, all the tools were built for larger scale farms and that. And so as that shift has happened, where small scale farming is becoming more relevant again, that's created a demand, and then solutions have been come up with. So like in the video, the greens harvester that we were using.
That was really cool.
Mows that. That was developed actually by a really famous farmer by the name of Elliot Coleman, who wrote the book The New Organic Grower back in the 80s, and still a very relevant book. And he came up with that with the help of a young 16-year-old at the time, Jonathan, and they came up with this harvester, and it took what it used to take for one bed of harvesting greens. We used to use scissors or little pocket knives, and it would take 2 people 2 hours, so 4 total hours of labor. And now, we can do that same bed with 1 person in 20 minutes. So huge change, and again, saving our bodies, making it more profitable of a crop to grow too. So there's a lot of really cool things coming out now from different kind of companies and inventors, and we have a slow tools summit every year where all those minds get together and talk through the newest things that they're working on and kind of work out the kinks on those. So it's a pretty exciting time to be in this field.
Yeah, our tool shed at the farm is just full of like all sorts of like tools that you can use for really specific tasks as well. They're all like handheld, but we have one. It's called like a stirrup hoe that like kind of you can scrape the edges of the bed if we have like things from a previous crop that's kind of coming up on the sides, and that saves a lot of time. And it's a lot easier to just run this long handle down the edge of the bed rather than like going through by hand and pulling them and bending over and picking up weeds, for instance. That can hurt your back, but the tools definitely save you. So.
I was just fascinated when I was at the farm watching you guys use that little harvester, because it reminded me of going through the car wash, and I see these car wash brushes spinning around and it's pushing up against the blade. But thinking about the alternative of going out there with scissors or a knife, 4 hours, it's pretty big change for something like that. That's a really cool invention.
Yeah, we own 2 of them now because there's no way I'm going to let one break and then not be able to harvest the same way. So we always have a backup now for some of those tools.
Nice. So I have a question that's kind of been coming in a couple times. Is do you guys what all the types of vegetables that you guys grow on your farm, and do you guys do any types of fruits?
Sure. Kyle, you want to?
Yeah, we grow a wide range of vegetables right now. We do everything from salad greens to root crops, and then kind of moving into warmer months, we do lots of fruiting crops. They're not fruits per se, but they produce vegetables in like a similar way that fruit would. So things like tomatoes, peppers, eggplant. We don't have any citrus or any like fruit or anything like that, but you've definitely grown them in the past, haven't you?
Yeah. Some of our old farm locations, we had orchards for citrus, peaches, apples, medjool dates, and all that, and that was a lot of fun to grow those things too. But right now we're just focusing on vegetables, your salad greens, head lettuce, carrots, radishes, tomatoes, all the more popular things has kind of become our niche. But we are investigating, trying to find a new piece of land that we can plant a new orchard and grow citrus again. So we're excited to do that again and kind of miss it.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question here, and it comes from Sue Lackner's class again, and it says, do you ever have a break from harvesting? So is this a 365 day a year type of a job, or do you guys have days off, or do you have seasons off, or?
Yeah, well, we really only harvest maybe a couple days out of the week. Mm-hmm. So we harvest right before farmers markets, and we harvest right before like wholesale delivery for restaurants. So our week isn't really like every single day we're out in the field picking stuff. We have like different tasks kind of designated for different days.
Right. With the exception being, Kyle mentioned the fruiting crops, so those tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, summer squash, cucumbers, those mature and on the plants, and they have to be picked regardless of orders or need that. So we have to once we get into that season, we'll be picking every day or every other day, just so that you can remove that fruit, so then the plant can put its energy into producing the next fruit in that too. So it actually stints the plant a little bit if you don't continue to pick that. So that's a more regular harvest, which then you have to balance your production with your demand to make sure that you're not overproducing and having all that labor going into that. So, but as far as the season, we've always grown 12 months out of the year, but we're this year we're planning on taking a month off, the hottest month in July, and just having a break, and then get back into it in August and getting ready for fall, and that just to give ourselves a chance to breathe and maybe take a vacation. And that, you know, most farms and other climates have the winter to take off, and it's a blessing and curse that we can grow all the time, but
Yeah.
it's also good to have a break. So we're excited for that this year.
So because Arizona is kind of unique with their weather, which are the better seasons for growing here? Or do you guys rotate what you're growing based on the temperature outside, or?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things we can go most all year round, but you know, the fruiting crops like those tomatoes are all heat loving and they're frost sensitive. So the colder months, you can't grow some of those outdoors. But our prime season is really fall through spring. You know, even the winter being a very busy time when a lot of people would think you're not growing, because it gets pretty chilly in the morning, but all the crops we grow are pretty adapted to handle those temperatures.
Yes. What's the size of the farm that you guys are on right now?
Sure. This is our smallest location yet, and we've been in 4 different spots, but this one's only 1 3/4 acres in total, and of that 1 acre of it is for production.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Ruth Ford asked, do you guys sell to the general public or just to restaurants and at the farmers markets?
Yeah, so the farmers market would be a good outlet for the general public, and that. So we do 4 farmers markets every week, which is a lot for a small farm like us. So we're in downtown Gilbert, downtown Mesa, downtown Phoenix, and uptown Phoenix every Saturday, every week. And then we are just about to open our own little farm store on property at the farm, where people will be able to come and get fresh veggies at their convenience. And then we do what's called a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. It's basically a subscription where folks sign up and they get a weekly or every other week box of whatever's freshest from the farm.
Okay.
So that's our main outlets. That, you know, we want to be direct to consumer on everything we do, whether it's to a restaurant or through the farmers market. So we have that connection and that relationship with our customers.
So Shaylani would like to know if you have any animals on your farm, and if not, why? Why not?
We have, over the years, we've had lots of different animals. When I started farming, we had 22 acres and a lot of space. We raised pigs and sheep and ducks and chickens. We kept bees, so we did a little bit of everything. Now, where we grow vegetables is a very small piece of land, and animals need quite a bit of space the way we want to raise them, which is open pasture, so they have lots of room to kind of roam around. So where we grow the vegetables, we don't have animals, but we do lease a separate piece of land about 20 minutes south of us in Queen Creek, where we have pastured chickens. We have 300 chickens roaming around on pasture, and we get eggs that we sell at the farmers markets there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kyle, do you get to work with the animals ever, or do you just?
We still kind of work closer to the chickens. Now that we're 20 minutes away, I don't really get to see them a whole lot, but every once in a while too, the chickens will kind of eat stuff that, like farm scraps, things that are, you know, kind of getting turned out of the walk-in or get brought back from market that we haven't sold. And so like there's kind of like a full circle with like how we treat the chickens as well. Yeah.
So I have a question here from Nancy Fountain. What's your favorite part of your job?
I love to be outside. That's my #1 favorite thing about, you know, working with my hands outside as a farmer. Just being outside, getting to see the sun pass over me every day, working, you know, in the field, working with the land, getting to know the seasons. That's been some of my favorite things that I've learned as a farmer.
I like the problem solving and the system, like creating systems and that's as the farm gets smaller and smaller for us. I don't think we can get any smaller than we are, but creating those efficiencies and those systems so that we can be very productive and on that small space. I really enjoy creating and figuring out those systems and then, you know, every day is different, so we're constantly have to figure out new ways and, you know, how to adjust and compensate for things. So I really enjoy that.
So I know that we were talking before just about those kind of things of the opportunities to problem solve on the job. So what are some examples that you can give, or what are some things that you've had to work through, working in this type of environment?
Yeah. Well, one that kind of just happened recently was we were getting a little pest pressure on some of our like lettuce heads, so we were kind of just troubleshooting, thinking of new systems and ways that we could, change a thing in our system that we could change so that we could process it more easily, and just working through making that small change, and it actually did work out pretty well. We were like able to like clean things in a pretty efficient manner, and just like tweaking little systems like that are already existing. It's part of that like adaptability of being a farmer and like getting to know, how things work on the farm.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very like schedule based, and we have to have a crop plan so we know exactly when things are supposed to be planted and transplanted in the field. So we have a very rigid calendar, but as the seasons change and it gets warmer, things grow faster. When it gets colder, things grow slower. So we're constantly having to adjust and figure out those things. Or, seasonally, sometimes like pest pressure, insect pressure becomes heavier, and so you're trying to figure out, and that's just like nature, right? That's just normal in that, but having to adjust how to protect those crops from those insects in an organic way. So we use things like insect netting, which is like a mosquito netting that we drape over the crops to keep the pests from getting at the crops. So then we don't have to spray anything on them, and then it keeps them, perfect looking without that. So things like that are ways we have to do, or adjusting how we water the crops. Originally we did only drip irrigation, and then we were having some challenges, so we did a combination of overhead like sprinkler plus the drip irrigation for certain circumstances, just to help give those crops kind of the best situation.
Okay. So is there a problem that you guys are working through right now that you haven't really perfected your solution, that you guys are still kind of working through right now?
I don't.
We got everything pretty dialed in. I don't know. We're doing pretty well with this. We've been kind of like experiencing lots of growth with the spring happening. So we've been kind of going through some, especially with like getting things ready for farmers market. Since I do a lot of the post market inventory and like some of the walk-in management, just kind of working through like product and learning and figuring out the systems for how to organize the product so that we can send it out in like an efficient way. That's been one little thing that I've been working on, I guess. So
yeah, I thought of another one with the heat and the temperatures continuing to rise. A lot of the crops, that's in nature. That's a signal to bolt or go to flower, and so where they, let's say a head of lettuce will shoot up a stalk, then flowers, and then they'll turn to seed, so that can kind of reproduce, and so when it starts to get warm, when it changes quickly, that's a signal
like
in
this
nature.
Week?
Yeah, like this week. And so we're seeing some of these crops that we don't want to go to flower doing that, and so we're having to adjust. So adjusting our watering schedule so it's cooling the root zone and kind of tricking the plant into thinking it's cooler than it actually is. So we're kind of making some of those adjustments.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we only have time for one last question, and so we have a lot of students that are out there that are, excited about this, whether they want to just do it at their own school or at their own house, or maybe in their communities, or maybe professionally one day. What's something that they can get started with right now with where they're at in their schooling to kind of prepare for something like this, whether it's a hobby or profession?
yeah, one thing that kind of really sparked my interest and like love of growing plants was just keeping a little herb garden at my house. Seeing it grow, like learning how to like cut from the plant without like hurting the plant, and just really learning how to like work with plants has been, it was really tremendous, like just keeping that little herb garden and taking care of it, and learning that like any sort of effort that you put into like growing a plant, you get back in the form of nutrition as well. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great resources out there now that have really come on the scene in the last, 5 years or so. Lots of great books like the Market Gardener, or the Urban Farmer, the Lean Farmer, and then there's a lot of social media. So like Instagram and like there's farmers utilize that tool quite a bit. So you learn a lot just from following them. YouTube channels where how-to videos. I mean, the amount of information flowing now is just incredible, and I'm really jealous. Wish I would have had those resources when I was starting out, when we were trying to figure it out. So
nice.
It's a wonderful time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for being here. We really appreciate it. We know, you guys are a lean staff, and so you guys being gone away from the farm is a big commitment. So we really appreciate you taking the time to come out and share your journey with us here today.
Our pleasure. Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be sending out an email with a link to today's broadcast, so if there's any part that you missed, or if you know of a colleague that's going to be doing something with a community garden, or maybe an after-school club that you think that might benefit from this, please feel free to forward that on. You'll also want to look for our Solve It STEM Challenge this month, which focuses on food waste. So look for that in your email. We'll see you next month with STEM Pro Live.